The Texas Revolution by Maddie, Kyler, and Mia. After the War of 1812 and the Louisiana Purchase, Americans moved into the Texas Territory thinking it was part of the new land bought by Jefferson. This land had rich soil that helped make farming easier, grasslands miles long where livestock could graze, forests filled with trees to provide for many log cabins, and rivers for transportation of goods and water for people and animals. Americans wanted this land, so they invaded the Spanish people that lived there, called Tejanos. Tejanos thought Americans were judgmental and thought of themselves as superior to the Spanish. Americans also didn't follow Spanish laws. Texans, Americans that lived in Texas, thought the Tejanos had many rules to follow. They banned slavery, and Americans weren't able to govern themselves. These rules were one of the reasons that Texans wanted Texas for themselves. Battle started for the ownership of Texas in 1833 when Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, a general and president of Mexico, met with Stephen Austin, and they discussed a petition. They said that Tejanos and Americans could live together in the self-governed Texas. When Santa Anna found out that if he said no, Austin would be for rebellion, they both prepared for the fight right away and hoped to gain Texas as their own. This rebellion began in September of 1835 when Santa Anna sent more troops into Texas to take the only protection of the Texans, a cannon. After the troops failed in taking the cannon, they waited in a fort called the Alamo for 2 months until the Texans drove them back to Mexico. Due to the defeat, Santa Anna returned to Texas to take back the land. Little did they know, Austin had a small army with Sam Houston as commander and were ready to take them on. The Texas Army included William Travis and Juan Seguin, generals of the Army, and David Crockett and Jim Bowie, well-known frontiersmen. On February 23rd of 1836, the Texans were surrounded in San Antonio and forced to surrender. Juan Seguin tried to spread the message across before Santa Anna's troops reached the Alamo, but it was too late. The Battle of Alamo was a violent fight that left 5 Texans dead, and Mexico with their first win. This loss stunned the Texans, and when Santa Anna continued following them, they retreated east. The army grew to 800 men, and by April of 1836, Texans were racing to Santa Anna's army and killed more than half of them under 20 minutes. Forced to sign a treaty that gave Texas its freedom, Santa Anna declared Texas independent after their victory at San Jacinto. This victory officially made them the Lone Star Republic, which represented that they were an independent nation. Although they liked making their own rules, they knew that they were Americans and part of the U.S. When Texas asked to be annexed into America, they were denied because the U.S. didn't want a war with Mexico and didn't want unbalance in the slave state to free state ratio. Texas then remained an independent republic for about 10 more years before they became an American state. The Texas Revolution is an example of manifest destiny because the Americans moved west to find more areas with many of the needed resources provided, and Texas was one of the territories that intrigued them. In the end, Texas went through a lot to become independent, but all they wanted was to become part of America, their own country.